You don't win over a young woman with flowers or sweet talk or your life story. You win her over with an energy that not every man your age still carries. Because after 50, the real mistake isn't getting older. It's becoming tame, predictable, turning into the man who explains everything but no longer ignites anything. And while you think she's looking for stability, what she's really craving is a thrill. If you don't get that, you'll end up being the adult who pays for dinner, while someone else gives her the chills. Today, I'm going to show you the 9 biggest mistakes an older man can make with a younger woman. Mistakes that don't just kill attraction, they erase your presence. And the last one, the 9th, is the most dangerous of all. Because it's the one you think makes you interesting, but actually makes you invisible. I'm Celia, woman, psychologist, and therapist. I've spent over 20 years listening to the things women never dare to say out loud. And today, I'm going to tell you everything. But if you leave too soon, you'll keep being that useful, available, and disposable man. So stay, because this video isn't here to entertain you. It's here to wake you up. Have you ever wondered why, despite having more experience, more stability, more wisdom, a young woman looks at you like you're invisible? Don't tell me you haven't felt it. That you haven't been in a conversation where everything was flowing, and suddenly her gaze went blank. Her body tensed up and you had no idea what you did wrong. Because here's the truth. It's not about what you did. It's about what you believed. Welcome to the first point of this video. And if you don't take this in today, you're going to keep losing. Believing that your experience gives you an edge. At 50, a lot of men think their life story makes them more desirable. That raising kids, paying bills, surviving divorces, or building a solid life is something a woman in her 20s or 30s will value. But she's not looking for stability, or your story, or your loyalty. She's looking for energy, a pulse, a man who doesn't show up to teach her, but to unravel her. Because experience isn't sexy when it comes wrapped in solemnity. If you walk in like the wise man who's seen it all, she gets bored. She'll listen out of respect, reply out of politeness. But the desire is gone. And when the desire's gone, you could have the resume of an emperor, and she'll still leave your messages on read. Want me to say it without filters? Female desire doesn't respond to logic or to your biography. It responds to mystery. And if you don't get that, you'll keep using your past as a shield, without realizing she doesn't want a shield. She wants a wound, a crack, a fire, a promise of chaos. Look around you. How many times have you seen a young woman with an older man who seems to have nothing solid, and yet she clings to him like he's a magnet? Why? Because that man, even without a story, has presence. Because he doesn't need to explain what he's lived. He radiates it. And you, on the other hand, justify yourself. You explain. You try to convince her with arguments, when she already judged you the moment you walked into the room. Let me tell you about a scene I've seen in my sessions more than once. A 52-year-old man, divorced, well-dressed, educated. He walks in with a 30-year-old woman. He's excited, she's lukewarm, and he says to me, "Celia, I don't get it. I give her everything. I listen. I respect her. I share everything I've learned from life. Why won't she open up?" And I look at him, and I see a man trying to seduce her with his resume. But his energy is flat. His gaze, cautious, his desire, tamed. And I tell him what no one else had the guts to say, because you don't make her tremble, because she doesn't want a teacher, she wants a mystery. And he goes silent, because deep down, he already knew. A young woman doesn't want to learn from you, she wants to be challenged by you. She's not after your story, she wants the feeling that with you, she can write one no one else would understand. But if you show up speaking to her like a mentor, a protector, a guide, you kill the spark. Because she's not looking for a man who understands her. She's looking for one who confuses her, who shakes her foundations, who pulls her out of that childish world where everyone admires her, but no one rattles her. So remember this, your experience is not an advantage if you use it as a crutch, if you use it as an excuse not to be uncomfortable, not to take risks, not to show your wild side. A young woman might admire you for what you've achieved, but she'll only give herself to you if she senses you can still lose control. And if you've forgotten how to provoke that, then, my friend, you're not a man of experience. You're a man who's been defeated. And that's the difference between being desired and being merely tolerated. Your experience isn't an advantage if you use it to justify yourself. And your story, no matter how valuable, is worthless if it doesn't spark anything in her. But there's something even more subtle, more destructive, more humiliating. And it's what happens when you don't just lean on your past, but start begging for approval in the present. We've reached the second key point of this video, seeking emotional validation from her. You don't do it in obvious ways. You don't get on your knees. You don't say, "Please love me." But you constantly ask if she's okay, if she enjoys your company, if she's comfortable, if she finds you interesting. You chase her laughter like it's a blessing, her gaze like it's divine approval. And every time she pulls away, you bend a little more. Because you're no longer seducing. You're waiting to be chosen. You're begging to be enough. And that, my dear, isn't desire. It's emotional dependence disguised as kindness. A young woman doesn't respect a man who places himself beneath her. She might appreciate his tenderness. She might value him as support, but she won't give herself to him, because desire doesn't live where there's need. It lives where there's power. And every time you seek emotional validation from her, what you're really saying without words is, "I don't know if I'm enough. I need you to tell me I am." And that is the greatest emotional weakness you can show, because she stops seeing you as a man and starts seeing you as a grown child, full of unresolved wounds and a need to be cared for. In practical psychology, this is called insecure attachment with savior role projection. It means that because you don't feel fully desired by yourself, you need her to reflect that back to you. You need her gaze, her warmth, her constant reassurance. And when she doesn't give it to you, you lose your balance. You don't get angry. You deflate. You don't argue. You shut down. And that's when everything breaks, because you stop being the man who holds the relationship and become the one she has to hold emotionally. And a young woman can play the role of understanding, but she doesn't get turned on by someone she has to take care of. Stoicism put it with brutal clarity: never place your center in someone else's hands. Because when you hand over your peace to another, you become a slave to their moods. And if you give your emotional validation to a woman, you become a hostage to her state of mind. If she's distant, you feel insecure. If she pulls back, you doubt your worth. If she doesn't respond with the same energy, you forget who you are. That's not love. That's emotional submission. And a man who submits on the inside will always be abandoned on the outside. So listen carefully. She's not here to return your identity to you. She's not here to confirm your manhood. She's here to admire you, if you first admire yourself. And that admiration doesn't come from ego. It comes from inner silence, from clarity, from the strength to not need her approval to stay grounded in who you are. If you can't look her in the eyes with the certainty that her presence adds to your life, but doesn't define it, then you're no longer seducing. You're asking for permission to exist, and no man who asks for permission is truly desired. He's merely tolerated, and what's tolerated eventually gets discarded. We've already established that your experience isn't a winning card, and that seeking validation from a younger woman only makes you appear weak in her eyes. Now comes one of the most common and misunderstood traps for older men. We've reached the third point of this video, and this is where things really start to shift: bearing yourself with words. When a young woman tells you she wants to know the real you, she's not asking for an emotional report. She's testing your energy. And if you, confused by this seeming intimacy, open up too soon, you lose her. Because intimacy isn't about what you say. It's about what you radiate. But in your rush to connect, to prove you're different from the rest, you start spilling everything. You talk about your divorce, your wounds, your past, your fears, the things no one else knows. You think that will move her. But what you're really doing is stripping away the mystery. And once the mystery is gone, desire fades. A young woman doesn't want to know everything about you. She wants to imagine, to sense, to discover you at her own pace. But if you give yourself away emotionally in the first hour, there's nothing left for her to win. She has all of you, completely. And desire doesn't feed on what's already available. It feeds on what's still out of reach, what hasn't been fully possessed, and you, in the name of honesty, in trying to show your true self, give it all away. You don't realize there are truths meant to unfold over years, not over conversations. Here's the strategy. Learn to speak without revealing everything. It's not about lying. It's about holding back, about pacing yourself, about letting her be the one to ask, to push, to want more. Because when you say less, your energy says more. The female mind doesn't react to facts. It reacts to signals. And if you know how to wield silence like a weapon, if you can stay quiet right when she expects you to open up, you throw her off balance. And that disorientation is pure desire, because she, used to men who pour themselves out, now finds herself in front of you and doesn't know how to get in. Picture this scene. A young woman asks you to tell her something no one else knows. You look at her, barely smile, and say, "Some things only come out over time, when someone shows they know how to keep them." You're not rejecting intimacy. You're setting the pace. You're leading the game. You're showing that you don't open up out of need, but by choice. And for a woman who's seen dozens of men begging for connection, that's a jolt. Because she realizes you're not there to be understood. You're there to be respected. Before we continue, I want to ask you something. If this video is already showing you what no one else ever has, hit that subscribe button right now and give it a like. That way, this message can reach more men who need it, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. But do it with a clear affirmation. I am wisdom and power. There are still some important lessons ahead, and believe me, the last one will hurt the most. Because it's the one that reveals why she stays, but no longer desires you. We've already learned that you shouldn't bare your soul too soon. Now, it's time to go deeper. Because even the men who manage to hold back, who learn to speak less and maintain the mystery, still fall into another trap that quietly destroys everything. It's more subtle, more polished, more seemingly harmless. But when it shows up, it turns a man into an emotional provider, without him even realizing it. We've reached the fourth point of this video, trying to impress her with material things. This isn't just about money, it's about misplaced energy. That hidden urge to say, "Look what I have, look what I can give you, look how I can make your life easier." You do it from a place of wanting to please, to impress, to show that with you, she could have comfort, travel, gifts, stability, and you think that will ignite her. But you don't realize that everything you give with your wallet, you're taking away with your soul, because she doesn't desire what you can buy. She desires who you are when you're not trying to buy anything at all. A young woman's mind doesn't interpret your gifts as pure generosity. She sees them as signals. And if the signal she receives is, "This man needs to offer me things so I'll stay," then she knows you're not the prize. You're the applicant. And a man who's applying isn't desired. He's evaluated, compared, used. And when he stops being convenient, he's replaced. This isn't a critique of your generosity. It's a warning to understand the order. A young woman must first feel that you're a mystery beyond her reach, that your energy is stronger than her beauty, that you can be with her, but you can also be without her, that you choose to give, but you don't need to. That's the difference. Because when you give from desire, you awaken gratitude. But when you give from fear of not being enough, you awaken indifference. Let me give you a real example from a therapy session. A 48-year-old man, entrepreneur, stable. He meets a 29-year-old woman. After a month, he pays for a trip. After 2, he covers her rent. By the 3rd month, he's already frustrated that she's not opening up the way he expected. He says to me, "I don't get it. I give her everything. Why isn't she responding?" And I tell him, because what you're giving doesn't move her. Because everything she's receiving is coming from a place of insecurity. Because you're not romancing a woman, you're trying to hold on to a shadow. He goes silent. He hadn't seen it that way, because many men still believe that giving more means loving better. But sometimes giving more just screams that you don't know how to sustain desire without external props. When you fall into this pattern, you lose the one thing that can hold a connection with a younger woman: respect. Because respect doesn't come from money. It comes from emotional power, from her knowing that with you, life can be good, but it can also be electrifying, that you're not here to buy her, you're here to awaken her. And if you don't ignite that fire, you could give her the world, and still, she'll see you as just another provider. This mistake settles in like an emotional trap. It starts with a dinner, then a little gift, then a favor. And before you know it, you're investing more than you're receiving, not in things, in presence, in energy, in desire. Because she gets used to receiving, and you get used to trying. And when that happens, the balance breaks. You're no longer the man leading her, you're the man chasing her, and the one who chases loses, even if he has everything to offer. Once you've fallen into the trap of trying to impress her with material things, what comes next is even more dangerous, because it's no longer about what you give, it's about what you allow, about what you don't correct, about what you accept with a smile out of fear she'll get upset, walk away, or stop seeing you as a nice guy. We've reached the 5th point of this video, failing to mark your psychological territory. A young woman will always test your limits, not because she's mean, not because she wants to destroy you, but because she needs to know how far she can respect you. The female mind isn't looking for sweet words, it's looking for structure, for a strong emotional outline that silently says, I'm in charge here. And if you don't draw that line, if you laugh off every jab, if you take every passive-aggressive comment with a grin, if you let her correct you, tame you, instruct you like she sees things more clearly than you, then you're no longer the man. You're the student, the buddy, the emotional support, everything but the emotional leader she needs to feel desire. This is where most men lose their way, because they confuse respect with understanding. They think setting boundaries means being aggressive. It doesn't. Marking your territory means silently saying, we can play, but you're not moving me. It's staying calm when she throws a sharp comment. It's not explaining yourself when she challenges you. It's holding your gaze without fear, speaking without anxiety, saying, I don't like that, without feeling the need to explain why. Because the man who explains too much is already asking for permission. And you know why this mistake is so destructive? Because it doesn't show up right away. In the beginning, she laughs, she calls you, she says she feels comfortable around you, that she's never talked this much with anyone. But what you take as a compliment is actually a signal. Because when a woman says she feels so comfortable with you, more often than not, it's because she no longer sees you as a man. She sees you as a refuge. And refuges don't get touched. They don't get kissed with fire. They don't get desired with intensity. They get used, appreciated, left behind without guilt. Reversing this isn't easy, because it's not about suddenly setting boundaries like some rebellious teenager. It's about changing your energy, your center, your internal direction. So when she challenges you, you don't react. When she tests you, you don't break. When she says something that used to hurt you, now it doesn't even land. Because your worth doesn't come from how she sees you. It comes from how you stand in the world. This is something you train, not with words, but in your everyday life, in your work, in your posture, in how you walk, in how you make decisions, in how you speak to yourself when you're alone. Because if you don't respect yourself in private, no one will in public. She'll feel it. She'll sense there's a wall inside you, an invisible boundary she can't cross, and in that moment, she'll look at you differently, because she'll finally feel that you're beyond her need for control. And that man, the one who doesn't move for someone else's whims, is the one who becomes unforgettable, not for what he says, but for what he commands with nothing but his presence. Marking your psychological territory isn't optional, it's essential, and if you've gotten that far, you're starting to rise. But now, we come to one of the most common, most silent, and most tragic mistakes, because even a man who earns respect can lose everything, if he confuses the direction of desire with the urgency of the body. This is the 6th point of the video, seeking intimacy without mastering desire. Picture this scene. You're with her, talking, laughing, there's chemistry. And you, as a mature man, feel like the moment has arrived. You touch her, make a move, try to get closer, but she pulls back, smiles, says she's not ready, that she's taking it slow, that she likes you but wants to get to know you better. And you retreat. You apologize. Think maybe you were too forward, that you should have waited. But what you don't realize is that it wasn't your action that turned her off. It was your energy. Because a man can touch, but if he hasn't mastered desire, his touch is weak. It doesn't pull. It doesn't burn. It doesn't leave a mark. And she feels that, even if she never says it. A young woman isn't afraid of contact. She's afraid of the emptiness that might follow. And if your gestures lack presence, if you come in without certainty, if you touch from need rather than power, you make her uncomfortable. Not because of what you're doing, but because of what you're projecting. Because there are men who haven't even laid a hand on her, and she's already trembling, and others who kiss her, and she's already planning how to leave without hurting their feelings. When you haven't mastered desire, your body doesn't cooperate. It becomes clumsy, anxious, reactive, and it shows in how you look at her, in how you breathe, in how you wait for her response after every move. That waiting is death, because real desire doesn't wait. It invites, it unsettles, it provokes. A man who owns his sexual energy doesn't need to do much. His presence already says everything, because he knows he's not begging for pleasure. He's choosing when and with whom to give it. Staying trapped in this pattern makes you invisible, because you start feeling like she's the one in control, that you have to wait for her pace, her permission, her moment, and you convince yourself that's respect. But it's not. It's emotional submission dressed up as sensitivity. And once a woman sees you from above, no matter how hard you try, she stops getting turned on. She just tolerates you. The answer isn't to become aggressive, it's to become magnetic, to reclaim your masculine energy as your center, to stop touching out of need, and start touching from power. From that place inside you where you know that if she says no, it's fine, because you're not expecting anything. You're offering a possibility, and if she doesn't take it, you haven't lost. Because a man who has mastered desire never loses. He simply chooses. Mastering your desire is the foundation for not being discarded as just another lukewarm man. But now you need to close the loop, because many men make it this far. They reclaim their energy. They learn to touch with power, to hold eye contact with strength, to lead the connection. But at the key moment, they fall, not because they're weak, but because they confuse respect with total surrender. Because once they believe they have her attention, her desire, her body, they relax, and they slip back into the role that destroys them the most. We've reached the 7th point of this video, becoming her stable option. You do it without noticing. You start talking about the future, hinting at moving in together, telling her that things could really work out with you, that you're not like the others, that you're serious, that you're here for something real, and all of that sounds noble, mature, the right thing to say. But it's a mistake, because a young woman doesn't want a promise of stability. She wants a presence that shakes her to the core. Desire doesn't come from commitment. It comes from risk. And the moment you present yourself as the ideal man, you stop being the man who lights her up. She won't say it, but she'll feel it. She'll feel you no longer challenge her, no longer disarm her. Now, you're just protecting her. And even if she keeps seeing you, even if she keeps texting, something in her starts to fade. Because she no longer feels the need to win you. There's no more edge, no more tension, just premature routine. And routine, when it arrives too early, is pure poison. It kills the mystery. It kills the fire. It kills what could have been something real, simply because you rushed into being her safe space. Here's the hard but necessary reflection I want you to make. How many times have you confused safety with desire? How many times did you think that giving her stability would win her over, when what she actually needed was to feel that she couldn't fully control you? How many times did you become the man who brings peace, when she was still craving war? Because that's the trap. You adapt to what you think she needs. and forget what she truly desires. The message is clear. You cannot be her stable option if you haven't first been her obsession. First, you must be the man she can't pin down, the one she looks at with hunger, the one who makes no promises but keeps her up at night. And if, after that, she still chooses you, then yes, you can build something real. But if you give her stability before there's ever been a storm, what you're building isn't a relationship. It's an emotional cage where you're the caretaker and she's the prisoner looking for a way out. The change is up to you. No excuses. If you want to be the man a young woman doesn't dare to leave, you can't act like the man who's available whenever she decides. You decide, you lead, you set the pace. Because if you don't lead the connection, you become her polite backup plan, and that man, believe me, doesn't ignite desire. He triggers affection, and affection without fire always ends in abandonment. You can't become her stable option without first being her obsession. And now, you're finally seeing what most men never do, that a young woman doesn't fall for the man who gives the most, but for the one who surrenders the least. But there's still one more trap, silent, dangerous, and deeply humiliating. Because it doesn't destroy you through conflict, it destroys you through confusion. We've reached the 8th point of this video, failing to detect her manipulation code. She doesn't yell, she doesn't demand, she doesn't hurt you outright. She does it with tenderness, with soft phrases, with ambiguous messages, with calculated silences. And if you're not fully awake, you mistake it for interest. You think she's just busy, that she needs time, that she wants to go slow, and while you try not to pressure her, while you work to understand her, while you try to prove that you're different, she's already playing both sides, with you as the emotional plan and someone else as the physical one. The female code isn't direct, it's symbolic, and if you can't read it, you end up funding your own replacement, because when a young woman isn't sure how she feels, she doesn't walk away. She stays close, but never fully commits. She sends affectionate texts, but never makes plans to meet. She tells you she's into you, but that she's in a healing phase. She strokes you with words, but withholds her body, and you, out of respect, out of fear of pushing her away, agree. And that's when you start losing yourself. The fix is simple but powerful. Observe more than you listen. Don't get caught up in what she says. Watch what she does, how she reacts to your silence, how much she invests when you're no longer chasing, how fast she shows up when you stop insisting. Because a woman who wants you, it shows, and one who's manipulating you, that shows too, just with a disguise. The disguise of emotional confusion, lukewarm affection, the special connection without labels. And if you don't break that spell, you become her emotional therapist, the one who holds her hand while she decides who gets everything you never will. If you want real change, you need to adopt a brutally clear mindset. Anything that isn't clarity is manipulation. If she hesitates, pulls back, contradicts herself, disappears, and then returns smiling, she's not connecting with you. She's using you to fill a void while she figures out who she really wants to burn for, and you're not here to fill voids. You're here to spark fires. For that, you need strength, presence, and above all, detachment. Because if you can't walk away from a woman who plays with your emotions, you're not in love. You're trapped. And what's keeping you there isn't love. It's poorly managed dependence. You're too old for these games. If you don't catch her code in time, you'll pay for it with your self-esteem, your energy, and your peace. Because nothing drains you more than loving a woman who only wants you as an emotional backup, while someone else is lighting her up in secret. And that, my friend, can't be fixed with patience. It's fixed with clarity and a firm decision. Either she's with you, or you walk away without looking back. Throughout this video, you've learned how to detect the manipulation code of a young woman. And if that's true, then you're already more awake than most. But right at that moment, when things start becoming clear, when you stop reacting to her games, when you begin to feel your strength returning, the final and most lethal mistake appears. It's not something she does, it's something you allow, and you allow it out of fear, exhaustion, or emotional comfort. We've reached the 9th point of this video, giving up your leadership out of fear of losing her. This is where everything is decided, because you can learn to stand firm, to read her desire, to spot her traps. But if in the end, when she tests your leadership, you back off just to not ruin things, then everything you've learned turns to smoke. Because female desire isn't sustained by technique, it's sustained by direction. And if you're not leading, even if you have 1,000 virtues, you're no longer her man. You're just her companion. And companions, sooner or later, become emotional clutter. This is where the excuses start showing up, the common ones, the cowardly ones. I don't want to be controlling. I don't want to pressure her. I'd rather go at her pace. Maybe I'm overreacting. Every one of these is just fear in disguise. Fear that she'll walk away. Fear that she'll say you've changed. Fear that she'll compare you to younger men, more impulsive, more desired. And so, out of fear of losing her, you lose yourself. You stop making decisions. You stop setting the pace. You stop saying with certainty, this yes, this no. And in that moment, she feels it. She feels there's no longer a man in front of her, just an emotional servant. Polite, yes. Caring, sure. But no longer leading. And when you stop setting the rhythm, she dances with someone else. Do you know what the biggest self-deception is? Believing that being flexible makes you mature. That stepping back from leadership is a sign of wisdom. But it's not. It's an internal surrender. It's handing the wheel to someone who isn't meant to steer. Because a young woman needs you to be the man who sets boundaries without raising your voice, who makes decisions without asking for permission, who doesn't wait around for her to figure things out, because he already knows where he's going. Masculine leadership isn't authoritarian. It's presence. It's the energy that silently says, you can move with me, but you won't shake me. You can question me, but you won't confuse me. You can seduce me, but you won't manipulate me. And if you can't hold that frame, everything else falls apart, because you might be interesting, desirable, even unforgettable. But if you don't lead, she leaves. Not for lack of love, for lack of direction. And there's no excuse. It's not your past. It's not your wounds. It's not your age. It's because you chose to step back, because you thought following a woman was a way to love her, when in fact, it's the fastest way to lose her. So remember this, if you don't earn her respect through your leadership, you'll be remembered fondly. But affection doesn't arouse. Affection doesn't build. And affection, when admiration is gone, is just the excuse she uses to walk away. It means everything that you made it this far, because after hearing all this, one thing is clear, you're no longer just an average man. The easy thing would have been to close the video when it got uncomfortable. The easy thing would be to justify yourself, to say, this isn't for me, to stay blind, to stay weak, to keep being the man who thinks that love means giving everything, even when he doesn't have anything left to give. But you stayed, and that means you're ready. Not to understand more, but to act differently. Today, you saw the 9 mistakes a man over 50 cannot keep making if he wants to attract, keep, or reignite the desire of a younger woman. These aren't just casual mistakes. They're the ones that shut down your presence, your leadership, your fire, and if you do nothing now, it's not because you didn't know, it's because you chose to stay asleep. I want you to make it clear in the comments. No explanations, no fluff, just write, I am wisdom and power. And next to it, the country you're watching from. It doesn't matter if you're a shop owner, a cab driver, a teacher, a construction worker, or a CEO. The only thing that matters is that you've understood your masculine energy is not up for negotiation. It must be strengthened, protected, asserted, not against her, but for you. I'm Celia, psychologist, woman, therapist. And this channel doesn't exist to comfort you. It exists to wake you up. Because House of Wisdom is exactly that, a refuge for the man who refuses to give up, for the one who no longer wants to be used, ignored, manipulated, or discarded, for the man who's realized it's not enough to be good, you have to be respected, admired, unforgettable. Subscribe right now if you haven't already. Not for me, for you, because you need to keep surrounding yourself with messages like this if you don't want to fall back into the patterns that once tore you apart. Please share this video with that friend you know is losing himself over a woman who treats him like her second choice. This might be the one thing that finally wakes him up. And don't go just yet. Watch the videos that are about to appear on screen. Pick the one that makes you the most uncomfortable. Because right there, exactly where you don't want to look, is where you'll find what you most need to hear. We're not ending this conversation, we're just getting started.